Halt! This is the tomb of the great Lord Gwyn. Tarnished it shall not be by the feet of men.
Foul tarnished.
Heretic.
What is thy business with these thrones?
Hear the voice of mine self, Gwyndolin, and kneel before me.
King Morgott, last of all kings.
Let the atonement for thy felonies commenceth.
Someone must extinguish thy flame.
And thy transgression shall not go unpunished.
Thy part in this shall not be forgiven.
Thou shalt perish in the twilight of Anor Londo.
Cower in fear of the night.
What foolishness! Why trespasseth upon the great Lord's tomb?
Put these foolish ambitions to rest. The thrones, stained by my curse.
Oh, heretic, swathed in dark.
Willful traitors, all.
An eternal curse upon thee.
Thou art but a fool. Thy deeds shall be met with failure, just as I. We are all forsaken.
Lordran and the lands between are a facade. The golden rays that shine over Anor Londo and the shining branches of the Erd Tree over Leyndell are a lie. The Age of Fire and the Golden Order and their leaders are seemingly gone, with echoes of their regime remaining. These illusions and fading doctrines are held by the most unlikely of candidates. Gwyndolin and Morgott are the most faithful to the Age of Fire and the Golden Order, respectively, despite not being accepted by these orders due to their cursed afflictions. They have bought into the established belief system that will never truly accept or appreciate them, yet they remain loyal all the same. Both would go on to rule the worlds that would have never welcomed them in the first place. Gwyndolin was the youngest of Gwyn's children who was raised in Anor Londo during the Age of Fire. According to the Dark Moon Catalyst's description, he was a Dark Moon deity who watches over the abandoned city of gods, Anor Londo. Gwyndolin is Gwyn's last-born and legitimate god, but he is also a moon sorcerer. Even though he was Gwyn's child, Gwyndolин's association with the moon made him an outcast due to having a frail and repulsive appearance, according to the Dark Moon Blade Covenant ring. As we see his appearance in-game, he has coils of snakes that function as his legs and means of movement. He was also raised as a woman and wore woman's clothing, as referenced in the Moonlight Robe. The power of the moon was strong in Gwyndolin, and thus he was raised as a daughter. The Reversal Ring was also granted to Gwyndolin at an early age in order to present as a more feminine figure through movement and behavior. Gwyndolin would grow up idolizing his father and the sun as referenced in the Crown of the Dark Sun, which states, "The image of the sun manifests Gwyndolин's deep adoration of the sun." When Gwyn linked the First Flame, Gwyndolин's siblings would deviate from his father's lineage, leaving him in control of Anor Londo and maintaining the illusion of the Age of Fire. Guinevere would leave never to be seen again, and the Firstborn would ally himself with the dragons. The rest of the council left as well, making Gwyndolin the ruler as a result. Since his appearance would prevent him from being a proper figurehead as a representation of the Age of Fire, he would conjure an illusion of his sister to serve as the symbol and spokesperson for linking the fire alongside Frampt. Referencing the Dark Moon Blade Covenant ring again, Gwyndolin created the illusion of Guinevere, who helps him guard over Anor Londo. He would also establish the Dark Moon Covenant to punish those who sinned against the gods in collaboration with Velka. He would lead from Gwyn's tomb in the shadows with his covenant in place and puppeteering the system that used undead as sacrifices to feed the flame. In Dark Souls 3, Gwyndolin would emerge from the shadows to set up an order that worshipped the moon publicly. Irithyll of the Boreal Valley was built on the ruins of Anor Londo alongside followers that worshipped the moon. He would be worshipped openly in Irithyll as shown with the statues of his likeness that decorate the area. Irithyll served as the new Anor Londo that instead of being bathed in the sun was now forever lit by the moon. As time passed, Sullivan would arrive in Irithyll and rise through the ranks of the clergy, corrupting other members and knights under his control by means of the profaned flame. Around this time, Gwyndolin was stricken with an illness and retreated to the old cathedral of Anor Londo. In this weakened state, Pontiff Sullivan imprisoned a god of the old royalty in the abandoned cathedral to be fed to the devourer according to his soul's description. As we find Gwyndolin in Dark Souls 3, he is being consumed by Aldrich in his boss fight. Despite taking ownership of his true self and leaving the idolization of his father and his beliefs behind, his rule would not last long, leading to him and his new society being swallowed whole. Morgott was one of two twins born from the relationship between Queen Marika and Lord Godfrey. He and his brother Mohg were born curse-afflicted with blood that caused their bodies to be covered in horns. These features were once revered as divine aspects of the Crucible, but under the Golden Order's regime were deemed heretical and were spurned by the grace of gold from the Erd Tree. All those affected by the Omen curse were banished to the subterranean shunning grounds underneath Leyndell. According to Morgott's shackle, shackles were used to bind the accursed people called the Omen, and these ones were made to keep a particular Omen under the strictest confinement, highlighting the disdain for their kind. Despite being a potential successor to the throne by lineage, Morgott would be banished and hated by society and his mother. Unlike his brother Mohg, who would walk a path against the Erd Tree, Morgott would remain loyal. As his remembrance states, though born one of the graceless Omen, Morgott took it upon himself to become the Erd Tree's protector. He loved not in return, for he was never loved, but nevertheless love it he did. Morgott would never be accepted by the Order despite taking the mantle of pseudo-ruler after the Shattering. He became the Golden Order's greatest supporter despite never being accepted by it. During his time as the Veiled Monarch, he would vanquish prospective lords outside Stormveil Castle and other locations throughout the Lands Between as Morgott the Fell. He would also command the Knights' Cavalry, who now wander the dim roads of night, were once led by the Fell Omen and were deliverers of death for great warriors, knights, and champions. The Tarnished would defeat Morgott in Leyndell, and he would be laid to rest to fade into grace by Godfrey upon their return to the Ashen Capital. Both characters were discarded by their parents in similar fashion. They would be subject to cruel punishment due to their cursed afflictions. Gwyndolin was isolated from the rest of the royalty and public society as he was raised as a daughter and given the clothes and means to behave more like a goddess. Morgott and his twin brother Mohg would be banished to the Shunning Grounds alongside their Omen brethren. The Shunning Grounds was a trash bin and a literal sewer for all things unwanted by the Golden Order and had less than ideal living conditions as we see in its filth-ridden state. Both Gwyndolin and Morgott were kept secret in order to not stain or taint the reputation of their parents and their idealized societies based around perfection and golden brilliance. From the perspectives of the Age of Fire and the Golden Order, both were born wrong and have similar birth defects that are seen as repulsive among higher society. Gwyndolin was born with snakes that made up his lower half while being frail in physical stature, which was in stark contrast to his siblings' hyper-feminine and masculine physical traits. Instead, he was a blend of the two ends of the spectrum when compared to his siblings Guinevere and the Firstborn. Morgott was also a visual affront to higher society with his Omen curse. His body was riddled with horns, and he also sported a monstrous tail. We can encounter many Omen throughout the Lands Between who have seemingly escaped the Shunning Grounds. They would be hunted by the Omen killers who were dispatched to kill and torture them, all while wearing their horns upon their weapons as deadly trophies, and wearing masks, carved in the image of the evil spirits that haunt the Omen in their nightmares. These two were cursed and doomed from the very start. They would never be accepted. It wasn't until society crumbled that they could emerge from the shadows. Both figures would share a similar desire to be accepted by their ruling parents, despite being hated by them and the societies they built. Gwyndolin would construct his persona around the same sun imagery as his father, as shown in his crown. Gwyndolin, despite being treated like a stain on the kingdom and age Gwyn created, still admired him. Gwyndolin wanted to be accepted like his siblings and would work to rule in his stead after all other candidates had left Anor Londo. Morgott shared a similar adoration for the order his mother had created. He would protect the Erd Tree and maintain the doctrine of the Golden Order despite never being accepted by it. They both share a desire for acceptance, even if their very existences were a disappointment to their parents. Both would even go so far as to take on the role of leadership of the kingdoms that hated them. When all possible candidates had left, Gwyndolin and Morgott would take the crown from the shadows and build illusions to act as the figureheads or guards of the remains of the capital cities. Gwyndolin would conjure an illusion of Guinevere to serve as the figurehead of linking the fire, and Morgott would create an illusion of his father to stand guard over the Erd Tree sanctuary. Both would not only adopt the beliefs that banished them, they would do so zealously and perpetuate them even further as the new rulers of Gold and Sunlight. These two are the last to remain as their siblings have been long gone, showing their unwavering loyalty to the parents that reviled them. These two refuse to change things for the better of their kind or their affliction, and instead work to maintain the status quo through promoting the age and linking of the fire and the survival of the Golden Order's influence. Gwyndolin's illusion of Guinevere in correspondence with Frampt is meant to deceive the undead into sacrificing themselves, and Morgott mistakenly believes his mother's desires are to keep anyone away from the Erd Tree in order to protect the Order. Gwyndolin and Morgott would not take on their leadership from a place of public display and representation, but in the shadows. Both wouldn't take on a typical boisterous monarch persona sitting on a throne, but a conniving master manipulator pulling the strings. This might suggest that they still bear the shame of their afflictions despite being the new rulers of the worlds that once rejected them. They had the chance to rewrite the world in their image, one that would accept the moon and one that would accept the Omen curse, but are too shameful of who they are and loyal to the parents to do so. However, Gwyndolin would go on to establish Irithyll in DS3, but the full extent of his leadership would be cut short once he fell ill and fell to Aldrich and Sullivan's alliance. In DS1 and Elden Ring, these two are the veiled monarchs who are maintaining the great cities and the influence of the dying age despite knowing it will never accept them. They maintain the faith so far as to establish organizations meant to further uphold it, with the creation of the Darkmoon Blades and Knights Cavalry. These organizations could have been set up to build something new, but were used to only perpetuate the status quo. In many ways, Gwyndolin and Morgott are coping with the failures of their parents. Both are continuing the systems that didn't work and refuse to deviate from those doctrines that doom the worlds they have made themselves responsible for. No matter how hard they try, they would have never been loved by their selfish ruling parents. They either played a useful idiot to continue the age built on sacrifice, or were unknowingly an obstacle to the ruler's true desires. Gwyndolin continues his father's legacy perhaps to make up for the love he never received, and Morgott has mistakenly thought he is fulfilling Marika's will in the hopes of being accepted by her and the Order. They are tragically deluded and not righting the wrongs of the past. These two are only inheriting the failures in the fading of the fire and the tarnishing of gold. Arguably, their lack of foresight and judgment is the greatest curse they suffer from. Thanks for watching. Feel free to share any additional thoughts on the similarities or noticeable differences between Morgott and Gwyndolin in the comments below. These are some of my favorite characters because of their individual complexities, so I'd love to hear what you all think about them. If you like my thoughts on Souls and other video game titles from time to time, feel free to subscribe to the channel as well as give the video a like if you got something out of it. I appreciate your support in any way you like to show it. If there's a topic you'd like me to cover, feel free to let me know in the comments as well. Thank you for watching, and I hope you continue to hold on to your flame of ambition. Take care.